Good morning, everybody. As is customary, but necessary, I want to start by thanking all of you for the work that you do to keep our healthcare system working as you care for our families. I've personally seen what it means to have family cared for with the complete grace and professionalism by nurses when families aren't able to visit their loved ones in hospitals or other facilities. So from my family to all of you, I just want to say thank you for all that you do. As I move on, I just want to say I'm now not the guy that's here to deliver a sweet and cuddly message. I'm here to share with you some of the bottom line truth about politics. I'm going to keep it short, but first, Mark, if I can ask you to play the video, please.
We're in an emergency under Doug Ford's dangerous leadership. For the first time in Ontario's history, Doug Ford is overriding Canada's Charter of Rights, our freedoms. Doug Ford rewrote our election laws to silence us. The court said it was unconstitutional. It's an abuse of power. Doug Ford's Conservatives don't want you to hear about what they're doing to make the lives of personal support workers hell, nurses' lives hell, and their children's teachers' lives hell, or to hear about the neglect of their grandparents who died in long-term care because of Doug Ford's failures. He wants to shut us up, and for the first time in Ontario's history, he will. Brought to you by SEIU Healthcare, the people on the front line of care.
Thanks for that, Mark. And I'm going to come back to the substance of that video in a moment. But at the core of that video is just one thing, and that's what I want to discuss with you today. I want to talk about the most important 5-letter word in politics: power. You either have it or you don't have it. You either exercise it because you have it, or you're at the whims of those who wield it. Just think about our terms in politics: campaigns, war rooms, majority, minority, attack ad, filibuster, petition, lobbying. All of these terms are military-like terms that describe political battle, how to beat your enemy, or how to influence decisions. You might be asking yourself, Michael, what does this have to do with me or with nurses more broadly? And the answer is everything. How do politicians get elected? Who helps them get elected? What decisions do governments make? How do provincial budgets get allocated to home care, to long-term care, and to hospitals? What is the reaction from unions, from businesses, from families, from voters? Do people scratch the back of their friends in politics? Do politicians face backlash for bad decisions? Do politicians silence their critics? Do critics have credibility? Does the public care about those critics and their point of view? Those are just 10 questions of many, but the point is this: when people sit on the sidelines, when they don't speak up, when they let other people make decisions for them, when all of those things happen, you lose your power. And I'm here to tell all of you that you have power, but only if you believe it and only if you exercise it. Nurses have power when they speak up. Nurses have power when families know their healthcare system is worsening when nurses are attacked. As others will show, nurses are among the most trusted people in our society. But I'll say that another way. When you have trust, you have power. And the truth is, Doug Ford knows that. It's why 12 months before an election, Doug Ford passed a law to muzzle the voices of nurses coming together through their unions to speak up about his failures, like Bill 124 and Bill 254. And after a court ruled Bill 254 was unconstitutional, it's why for the first time in Ontario's history, Doug Ford is invoking the notwithstanding clause to trample on your charter rights. As our ad says, he doesn't want nurses telling people the hell that is going on in our healthcare system. He's using his power to limit yours. And there's only one remedy, and that's the ballot box. For nurses to reclaim your power, you must replace him at the ballot box. You must make phone calls so your coworkers vote. You must knock on doors so your neighbors vote. And you must take your entire family to vote. You must do these things to reclaim your power for higher wages, for full-time jobs, for increased staffing levels. You must vote. But in a democracy, the choice is yours. And I just want to say before the polling question comes up, because this is an important thing, not all individuals who live in Canada can vote. Not everybody who provides the work and the care to our country are citizens. And that's okay. And you still have a voice. And that means you can still volunteer in the electoral process. You can still volunteer with your union. You can still speak up. You can still do all of those things because you too deserve a voice and deserve power. And just because you can't vote doesn't mean you can't influence the decision of those who do. So if you're not a citizen, that is perfectly okay. You still contribute to this country, to the society, and to our healthcare system, and you still deserve a voice. So I'm now just going to turn it over to Mark so he can bring up the polling question now. And we're going to ask you this. Do you plan on exercising your power at the ballot box to have your voice heard in the next provincial election? Or said another way, when the time comes in June of 2022, will you vote? So we're going to give you a moment to answer that question, but I want to thank you again, and to every SEIU nurse. I know that if nurses exercise their power, then Ontario will head in a more positive direction.
Good morning, everyone. It's really good to be here with you this morning. So as Jackie mentioned, we're going to be here today for a couple of minutes talking to you about two somewhat unique but connected-ish topics. And as the interim director of hospitals, I'm going to talk about some of the changes that we've made in the hospital sector in response to some of the issues and voices that we've heard from our hospital members. And then Jackie Haynes is going to be joining me to talk about some of the things that you can do as nurses to amplify your voice and be part of the movement towards positive change within the political system. So as I mentioned, one of the big things that we've done in the last couple of months within the hospital sector is really moving towards a team-based system. And all of you as nurses are part of a team, right? A multidisciplinary team with physicians, other RPNs, PSWs, clerical staff, support staff. So you have a team-based system and you are supported and serviced by the union now with a team-based system as well. And I know all of you interact with different people in the hospital and interact with different people in the union. So we just wanted to give a very quick overview of some of the different kind of classifications, for lack of a better word, or disciplines within the union that are there to support you. So obviously you have your union representatives who are specialized in labor relations. And those are the staff from SEIU that deal with your grievances, attend labor management meetings, support some of the arbitration process. You have now internal organizers who are also staff who are specializing in organizing the workplace when we're talking about achieving common objectives and instilling a sense of unity and purpose within the sector. And you know, when you have campaigns running in the hospital sector within the union, they're going to be the ones who are, you see, executing some of those field duties, and also doing education, mobilization, things to support the union reps and all of the members within the hospital sector. One of the new things that we have rolled out in the last couple of months are the workplace organizers. And the workplace organizers are chief stewards and stewards who are on leave from their regular duties to help execute campaigns and support labor relations within the hospital sector. And I want to give a shout out to 3 of our workplace organizers who are also RPNs and are here today with us. Jen from RVH, Jake from Niagara Health, and Raf also from Niagara Health. And you have 3 RPNs, strong leaders in the workplace who are, I would say, the ears and voices of the union within the workplace. These are members who are off on a leave, supporting some of the important work the union is doing, and we're going to be expanding that program over time. And obviously, a lot of you who are here today are chief stewards and stewards. You are the workplace leaders. You are the ones that are in the workplace every day, seeing what's going on, responding to the members' inquiries. So you play probably the most important role within the union and within the hospital sector. So I really kind of think of this as a team base, as I said, but really kind of wheels that if one wheel is not turning, the whole system's not really working well, right? So obviously at the core of everything are our members, are the members that are making us aware of some of the issues in the workplace. And we respond through education, through campaigns, and sometimes through labor relation activities to deal with some of the issues. And there's been a lot of good examples lately. And then, as I'm sure some of you know, the grievance and collective agreement are and other legislations like the Labor Relations Act, Occupational Health and Safety Act, Human Rights Code. Those are very powerful and important tools to be used when there are issues in the workplace or individual issues in the workplace. But obviously, sometimes we have to go above and beyond that. Political action being a huge tool to sometimes address and push for change. And there's been a lot of examples of that, even during the pandemic, where nurses and other members have stepped up and said, hey, listen, there's an issue in my workplace, and obviously pandemic pay and unpaid isolation were big issues during the pandemic for nurses and for all hospital workers. And because we've had chief stewards who are active, workplace organizers and staff to support them, we've been able to achieve some pretty significant steps forward in the last couple of months because members stood up, took action, and through campaigns, petitions, writing letters to the CEO and to the local politicians, there's been definitely some good steps towards fairness and equity in the workplace. The workplace leaders, who are the workplace organizers, the chief stewards who are off, the chief stewards and workplace activists as a whole are really there to ensure that what is going on in the workplace is identified and are dealing with some of that grassroots aspects of the union. And also to work on some of the strategic campaigns that we are actioning for the hospital sector. And then obviously the staff are there to support you as well and play a crucial point within the hospital sector. But the thing I really hope folks realize, and maybe some of you are not aware of, is behind the union reps and the internal organizers, there are multiple different parts of SEIU that play an important part, right? Research, which I think you'll hear from our head of research, Matt Catmore, later, who support bargaining, who support arbitration, who look for trends and identify different sort of data and studies that can be used to make stronger arguments for change. WSIB department, right? I mean, the WSIB department has achieved, I think, over $2 million worth of appeal victories in the last year for members who have had their WSIB claims denied. And our experts in the WSIB department that represent those members in front of the tribunal and have been able to achieve, like I said, almost over $2 million worth of rulings that support the members and give them the funds and the coverage needed to recover from workplace injuries. And obviously we have legal support as well, a big group of lawyers that we utilize to represent our members during arbitration and negotiations. The thing that I really wanted to focus in on are the duties and responsibilities of the workplace and regional organizers, right? Because again, this was something that was in response to what we've been hearing from the members in the hospital sector about increased visibility, making sure that there's someone in the workplace as often as possible that members are aware of, someone to lead actions within the workplace. And the core duties of the workplace organizers, who are again chief stewards, members who are off from a full-time basis or 2 or 3 days a week to support the work of the union and support the memberships, are to communicate, making sure that members are aware of campaigns, events, actions, and emails and social media and the app now are crucial, really good communication tools, because you have the ability to access that information when you have time or when you need to. but also we know that the importance of making sure that you have someone in the workplace who's able to go from department to department and engage members where you work or during lunch in the lunchroom or in the cafeteria, and talk about some of the work that the union is doing, and giving you guys the opportunity to partake in some of those important actions. To educate. Education is always key, right? And beyond stewards education and the great education programs that under Jackie's leadership has occurred in the hospital sector, there's other things that we have responded to in cases where we have hospitals that are seeing an uptick in harassment. The workplace organizers and internal organizers are able to do training on Bill 168 or harassment and discrimination protocols. To mentor, right? Obviously, mentorship is a core component of leadership. The ability to understand what others need to flourish, what others need to play a leadership role, and mentorship is definitely a very important aspect to fill steward vacancies, to support the stewards, and then also to support the Joint Health and Safety Committee. To monitor, right? And that's, I think, one of the most important things, to understand what's going on in the unit, communicate some of those challenges or emerging trends. And so we can then take that back and develop education or campaigns to address some of those issues that can perhaps not be addressed through labor relation activities. And to mobilize, and that's, I think, going to be a big theme for today, is when we have these moments where we need to show strength in numbers, where we need to show solidarity, and we need to have the public see that there's an issue that needs to be dealt with from the political perspective, to make sure that our members are aware of those opportunities and to mobilize the membership within the unit. So some of those are the key duties and responsibilities of the new workplace organizers and regional organizers for areas like up north, for example, where you have a larger geographic area but smaller units. So now I'm going to put a pause on that, and we're going to switch gears, and I'm going to ask Jackie Haynes, the internal organizer from our community and home care sector, to join me as we talk about some of the continuation of what Michael was talking about, mobilizing members for action, and why political action is super critical for nurses and for all healthcare workers.
Good morning, everyone. What percentage of the Ontario budget goes to healthcare? Put your guesses in the chat.
So while you're doing that, so obviously every year the Ontario budget comes out, they put money forward to fund the programs. So the question that Jackie's putting up here is, what percent of that budget, the overall budget for the province, goes into the healthcare, just into healthcare?
Okay, so we're getting 7%, 10%, 2%, 15%.
Okay, good guesses. Maybe I'll wait for a little bit for a couple more.
35.
35. Okay. 30. I see. Pam Ward, 25,
20.
35. Okay. Folks are getting very, very close. Very close. So in the 2020-2021 provincial budget, and someone I think got it basically bang on, 34.6% of the overall spending of the province goes to the health sector, which represents $64.6 billion. That's a big chunk. So the other way of looking at that, for every dollar of taxes you pay to the provincial government, not the federal government, but to the provincial government, 35 cents of that dollar goes towards just healthcare spending.
What percentage of Ontario budget goes to healthcare? If you could put your guesses in the chat.
So that should actually say hospital. So within the hospital, within the healthcare budget, how much of that goes just to hospitals? Just to hospitals out of that 34% within the healthcare spending.
Okay. We're getting 15%.
15, okay.
50, 75.
75, okay.
15, 30.
30. All right. Folks are pretty good. You guys are sharp. So the answer is 35% again, right? So, and this is a little bit of an older statistic, but the trends are basically the same. So out of that 60 some odd billion dollars that goes towards just healthcare, 20 billion or 35% is allocated for hospitals only, right? So you can see the other big chunk being going to physicians through the OHIP program. And you see some of the other items here, like capital investments, that's like building new facilities or refurbishing them, long-term care, the Ontario drug program. But you can see hospitals make up the largest chunk out of the healthcare budget.
Reflection. Healthcare is the single largest item in the Ontario budget. Hospitals are the single largest item within the healthcare budget.
And you probably see that every election cycle or whenever people do polls, healthcare is always in the top 3 issues that voters care about, right? And obviously, if people care about a program, that means it has to be funded. So you can see, as Jackie just said, healthcare and hospitals are the largest budget item within the provincial budget.
So why does this matter? In times of financial difficulty, governments often look at reducing the largest expenditures. So obviously, in this case, they're going to be looking to hospitals. Lack of investment in healthcare and hospitals has the same effect as cuts.
That's right. And I mean, I would also say, and I'm sure a lot of you did experience this, that I got into the hospital sector. I used to be a hospital worker during the Harris years, right? And I'm sure some of you were in the sector or worked in hospitals during the Harris years, and you remember some of the huge budget challenges and the massive changes that government made. Laid off tens of thousands of nurses, closed down hospitals, merged services. And obviously that was the previous conservative government that did that. So you can think about it when you have a budget crunch, and we know after COVID is over and the government starts to look at some of the money that they've spent, there's going to be a significant budget deficit. And in times of deficits, especially conservative governments, but other governments as well, always look at social programs to cut, right? So you can imagine if you're, let's say, Doug Ford, and you're doing the budget for the next budget cycle, and you have a huge deficit that you have to make up, where do you think he's going to be looking at? And I would even expand on that some of the people that within the Ford government currently are the same people from the Harris government. So you know that ideology, that that priority to balance the books on the backs of healthcare workers, and specifically hospital workers, is going to be a real dynamic.
We need to keep healthcare spending a priority, and this is where you can all help.
Absolutely. So this is where what Michael talked about is so important: power, and how to exercise your power, not just to support the system or participate in the system, but to understand the system, understand your power within the political system, and use it to push for change.
So lobbying for change. I just wanted to talk a little bit about lobbying for change because I was involved extensively in a campaign for DSWs and retirement home workers. But I just want you all nurses to know that because you have a well-respected position in the community, that if you just think about that for a minute, it gives you so much power. If you really think about that, you're very well respected. This is an opportunity when things are not going well, especially during the pandemic, to really come together and to really buckle down on the issues that are at hand and really go for it and just make that change. I know that sometimes lobbying the government for some you might feel intimidated, but there's absolutely nothing to be intimidated by. MPPs and MPs are there to service you. They were elected to listen to your concerns. And, it's a good opportunity to email, virtual meeting, in-person meeting, to talk to your MPP, to educate them about your field and why these issues are very important during the pandemic and always. So before I go today, I'm going to leave my number and email in the chat. In case you want to take some political action. I know Jackie was saying that you guys are going to be doing something today. So if you need any support, writing, visiting, anything at all, I'm always here for you.
Thank you, Jackie. And just to talk about this picture for a second. So this picture was from the nursing lobby day 2 years ago, where uh, I think it was 30 or 40 RPNs basically took over Queen's Park, right? And met with MPPs in their offices to talk about some of the challenges within the hospital, long-term care, and home and community care from an RPM perspective. And believe it or not, what I heard in those kind of debriefs after those meetings is a lot of these MPPs didn't even know who RPNs were and what they did, right? They know of nurses, but to even educate, as Jackie said, about the RPM profession and how your scope has expanded so much over the last couple of years to basically be equal to RNs in many situations. I mean, education is a super important aspect of lobbying when you're talking to politicians and making them aware of what you do and the critical roles you play within the hospital and healthcare sector as a whole.
So politics matters to nurses through government funding, scope of practice, regulatory, bargaining, wages and funding, childcare and social programs.
Absolutely. So we just talked about government funding, the budget allocation, right? So politics matters to nurses because your staffing ratios, job postings, scheduling, a lot of those things that have a monetary value to it come from the government, right? They're the ultimate funders of the healthcare sector. And obviously right now, as a offshoot of that, Bill 124, which we should all be familiar right now. So the government's extremely ill-intended cap of 1% on total compensation for healthcare workers. And again, it's not just wages, it's total compensation, benefits, vacation time, sick benefits, all of those things that have a monetary value are now being restricted to 1% because of Doug Ford and his government's decision. So government funding matters a lot. Same with scope of practice and regulatory aspects, right? So the scope of practice for nurses, which I know is a big, big issue right now, and the regulatory provisions of the college are, again, influenced greatly by government. Bargaining, which I talked about, Bill 124, and the funding of healthcare, and your nurses, but you're also human beings and members of society. So when there's changes to childcare programs, social programs like access to mental health, for example, all of those things have an impact on your life, and they're all being driven out of Queen's Park. That's why politics matters to nurses.
How you can be the voice of change. So you have credibility as a nurse, firsthand experience on how government action affects care, communication skills, passion for improvement, and you're all natural advocates.
Absolutely. And as Jackie mentioned before, in every single poll in North America, in Canada, and the US, when they're asked, which are the professions that you respect, that you look up to, nurses are always in the top three. Always in the top three. So you have that street cred, right? You have that credibility among the public of people that are professional, that care, that work hard. So your voices matter. And that's where you can exercise your power, because as soon as you say, hey, I'm a nurse, people's attention peaks up and their respect for you is evident. By the way, politicians are usually in the bottom five, right? And the thing I really want to hone in on is, if you think lobbying or talking to politicians or campaigning is something that you feel uncomfortable with or you've never done, that's why the union is here to support you during that endeavor. And we have a lot of RPNs on this call who have said that to me and have gone basically done any sort of political action and have excelled at it. But the thing I really want to impress, because I worked with nurses for the majority of my hospital career, is that think about what you do on an everyday as a nurse with patient care. And those aspects are the same as lobbying, right? So you have that firsthand experience. You know exactly how the system works, or in most cases doesn't work, and what needs to be fixed. You have communication skills. You have to talk to patients about some good things and some horrific or bad or share bad news. So you know how to communicate with people. You have a passion for improvement. Every nurse that I know is always, why can't the system work like this? Why can't we have that? Why can't some policies change to reflect exactly what we need? So you already have that passion for improvement, and you're all natural advocates. think how many times you have to, page a physician saying, come down here, you need to reassess this patient, or call interventional radiology, like when is my patient getting this PICC line put in, or call pharmacy, why is the NSEF missing for my patient? So you're advocating already every day within your professions, and this is just taking it to a different level or putting it into a different setting, right? The thing I want to just impress is you're respected, you have the power of your experiences, and you already have the skill sets that make you a perfect advocate for change through lobbying and campaigning.
How to become an agent for change. So lobbying MPPs and MPs, you can do this by virtual meetings, in-person meetings, petition, and online actions. I know that there's quite a few RPNs that have done a lot of this work already. Campaigning, canvassing, phone banking during elections, the GOTV, and leading workplace campaigns. And of course, running as a candidate. We've had a few of those in the RPN division. So
absolutely, absolutely. So these are some of the things that you can do with the support of your union to amplify your voice and to be part of the solution to push for positive change. Now, as Michael mentioned, that the ad that you saw, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of the information we've been putting out there about Bill 254, and how Bill 254 is exactly designed to mute the voices of nurses and anyone who's in opposition to the government or has something to say that is counter to the government narrative. So the government knows what I just talked about on the previous slide, that you have the credibility, that you have the experience, you have the skills to go out there and engage with the public on these critical issues and make healthcare a major issue in the next round of elections. And 254 is aimed at saying, no, we don't want nurses to talk. We don't want healthcare workers to talk because they are afraid of you. They are afraid of what you're going to be saying and how that's going to impact their chances to get reelected. And as Jackie mentioned, lobbying and campaigning are important things. That's how we frame the message, make MPPs aware of what's going on, push for change, and then by campaigning, we're holding them accountable during election cycles, right? You said this previous election, did you do it? Yes or no? Or what will you do if you get elected? And obviously, the ultimate step is running as candidates, and we've had, even last round, two members, Ashley McCrae and Jody Edington, RPNs, who took that step and said, you know what, I've done it, now I want to be at the table making these decisions with the nursing perspective, and have ran for candidates, which is extremely admirable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, Jackie, now it's time for our polling question.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So what kind of political action are you most interested in? So we have lobbying, workplace action, election campaign, and online campaigns.
All right, let's see. Oh, look at those results. Workplace actions. Oh, it's a race between lobbying and workplace actions. All right, maybe a couple more seconds. All right, I think we have a clear winner. So workplace actions, and I think that's super important. Obviously, you're at the workplace, you're surrounded by other SCIU members and RPNs, and education, raising awareness, and during campaigns, making sure that your colleagues vote is super important. And lobbying, letter writing, election, member to member, get out to vote, which may be intimidating, I know, to go around and knock on strangers' doors, and hopefully we'll get back into an environment where we can do that again. But those things are super important. And I'm sure if you talk to anyone who's done that, they were a little bit nervous at first, but by the end of the day, they were loving it. Because you have, again, you say, I'm here, I'm a healthcare worker, and I know, Jackie, you've had a lot of those experiences too, amazing conversations with members of the public about what's going on within healthcare. Obviously, 254 is aimed, again, at preventing us from doing that. Good thing is we can still do it member to member, so we can engage our members and talk to them about all these issues. So with that, Jackie, thank you for co-facilitating here with me today. And one of the pictures you saw there was the lobbying day. And I want to really give a big shout out to Sheena Woods, who organize that lobby day. So again, an RPN who took that leadership role and organized an RPN lobby day at Queen's Park for 40 of her fellow RPNs. And I am honored to give the virtual floor over to Sheena Woods to share her story. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking time out today to come on to the Nursing Summit. Yeah, like Christophe said and Jackie said, I did help organize the political lobby day. I can't believe it was 2 years ago already. Wow. That's crazy. What a 2 years it's been. But I just wanted to share my vision story a little bit here for you all. Yeah, because we're going to be doing them in the next little while. So like Christophe, Jackie, everyone else said, my name is Sheena Woods and I'm an RPN. I live in Thunder Bay. That's where I live. I live in Thunder Bay. I'm a registered practical nurse there and I work in the ER department currently at the hospital. Just a little bit about me. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and a bus driver. And my dad started out as a race car driver, actually until I was 2. And then he started his own contracting business 35 years ago. I'm the oldest of 4. I'm the only girl. I have 3 younger brothers. I also have 2 stepsisters. So I guess technically I'm the oldest of 6 actually. So my dad was never a political man. He was never a union man. In fact, he dislikes unions, dislikes politics, and dislikes anyone in power. So naturally, I kind of grew up the same way, not knowing anything about unions, not knowing anything about politics or rule following for that matter. He did, however, always encourage me to do my own thing, make smart choices, and break rules that are meant to be broken. But most of all, he always taught me to speak my mind. My dad used to say to me, "It's in your blood, daughter, your need for speed. You do life how I used to race cars, fast and furious. But have patience. You can't pass the car in front of you until the outside 4th corner is clear. Then make your move. But be fearless when you do it and push that car in front of you to have to make way for you." I took his advice 7 years ago and made my move and became a registered practical nurse. I saw my chance to be something better and I took it. I had 2 young kids at the time, but I knew I had to do something better for myself and for them. I made my outside 4th corner move. I pushed past the boundaries that were in front of me. I joined SEIU in 2014 as a member, and only because union dues were coming off of my check and I had no idea why. Keep in mind, I had no clue what a union was or what it did. I spoke to my mentor, who's Kathy Bishop, who I think is, she must be on here. I just haven't been able to find her. My union journey started at this point and I've never looked back. My political journey is what stands out the most. And most days I hardly even knew who our prime minister was, nor did I really care at the time. I had to figure out what politics and nursing had to do with each other. And I never actually voted till I was 30, which was when I graduated from college. But let me tell you, politics has everything to do with nursing. They control and have the power to make the changes that we need. I've spoken to many MPs and MPPs the past few years and our role in healthcare, and most of them had no clue what a registered practical nurse even was, or what our role was in healthcare. To educate a politician about what your role is empowering. Watching the look on their faces and reactions is satisfying. They're supposed to be the ones that are empowering us, or should be the ones that are helping us, but no, in fact, we were the ones that had to educate them on what our role in healthcare is. Knowing that your voice and your ability to be fearless, to get out of your comfort zone, push past those boundaries brings on a confidence in yourself, in your job, that will help RPNs want to make a difference. Staring down the eye of the pandemic for the past 18 months, it should be clear to all of us how much politics actually matters. Let's refer to Bill 124, Bill 254. Like what? The government has been breaking rules at our expense for the past few months. What the future holds for all of us, I don't know. This was actually the hardest part of this. The future, I find, is always the hardest part to write. I do know that we can't stop our fight now. I know we are all tired, exhausted, both mentally and physically, but I promise you I will continue my political war, I call it, but I can't do it alone. I need all of you to get involved when I call on you to be there, not just for me, but for all nurses, for our coworkers, for our patients, for the public, all frontliners. My voice is just one voice, and yes, it can be loud, I know, but imagine what 3,000 to 4,000 RPNs sound like and what we can accomplish. That's all. Thanks, everyone.